There is a gate standing open in front of you right now. You didn't schedule this. You didn't plan for today to be the day everything shifted. But something brought you here. Something in you recognized the address of this transmission before your conscious mind had any idea what was waiting inside it. And that recognition, that pull, that sense of arriving somewhere you were already supposed to be, that is the first sign. That is the gate announcing itself. Because here is what almost no one understands about the moments that change everything. They don't announce themselves with trumpets. They don't arrive with a calendar notification or a warning label. They arrive quietly, almost casually, disguised as an ordinary afternoon. You're sitting where you're sitting right now. You pressed play on something. And the universe, which has been waiting for precisely this configuration of your readiness, opens a door in the middle of your Tuesday. There is a state of consciousness that exists beyond the ordinary frequency of human thinking, not above it in the sense of superiority, beyond it in the sense of dimensionality. The way a doorway exists beyond the wall, not better than the wall, but opening into something the wall can never access. This state has been called many things across many traditions, many centuries, many languages. Today, we are going to call it what it actually is. We are going to strip away the mysticism and the mythology and the centuries of misunderstanding and look at it with the clean, precise eyes of someone standing at the threshold. We are going to call it the God state. And before you let your mind do what minds do, before it categorizes, qualifies, dismisses, or inflates what those words mean, I want you to stay right here at the edge. Because the God state is not a religious concept. It is not an ego concept. It is not a destination for special people or enlightened masters or those who have suffered enough or prayed enough or meditated for 10,000 hours. It is a quantum state. It is a specific, measurable, crossable threshold in consciousness. It is the other side of a gate that is standing open right now. And the single most important thing I can tell you in the first moments of this transmission is this. The reason 99% of people never enter it is not because they can't. It's because they don't know it exists as a door they can walk through. They think it's a mountain they have to climb. They spend their entire lives looking up at something they could have simply stepped through. You are not going to make that mistake today. Today, you are going to understand what the God state actually is, not the myth of it, the mechanics of it. You are going to understand why it changes everything about how you think, how you perceive, how you create, how you move through reality. You are going to understand what is on the other side of this gate, and why crossing it means you can never go back to thinking the way you used to think. And then, and this is the part that matters most, you are going to cross. One version of you pressed play on this transmission. A different version will finish it. Let's begin. There is something happening in your consciousness right now that you may not have a name for. A kind of pressure. A sense that the way you've been thinking, the strategies, the frameworks, the mental loops you've been running, are reaching the end of their usefulness. Like software that was designed for a different operating system, still running, still processing, but slower now, glitchier, more effort for less result. You've noticed this. Maybe you've noticed it as frustration, working harder and getting the same outcomes. Maybe you've noticed it as a kind of restlessness, a feeling that something fundamental needs to change, but you can't quite locate what. Maybe you've noticed it as a creeping suspicion that the people around you are playing a game with rules you no longer believe in, and you're not sure whether to keep playing or walk off the field entirely. This is not a problem. This is a signal. This is the gate vibrating at a frequency that matches where you are right now. This is your consciousness telling you, in the only language it has available, that you have reached the edge of one state and the entrance to another. The 99% don't recognize this signal. They interpret it as something going wrong. They try to fix it. More productivity, more hustle, more optimization, more of the same thinking applied with more force. And for a while, that works. The glitching slows down. The frustration eases. They get back on track. But the track leads back to the same place, and the signal returns, louder this time, more insistent, because the gate doesn't close. It waits, and it keeps sending the signal until you either cross or you spend your life explaining to yourself why you chose to stay. The 1%, and we will talk about this number in precise terms throughout this transmission. The 1% recognize the signal for what it is. Not a problem, a portal. They don't try to fix the feeling of being at the edge. They lean into it. They ask what's on the other side, and then they step through. You are here because you are ready to be in that 1%. Not ready in the sense of having all the answers. Ready in the sense that your frequency has reached the threshold. The gate is open because you are a match for what's on the other side. And what's on the other side is a way of thinking, perceiving, and operating in reality that the 99% will never access. Not because they're excluded, but because they never found the door. If this transmission is already opening something in you, go ahead and like it and subscribe so we can keep building this together. Let's talk about what the God state actually is, and if this is landing for you, there is something deeper I want to offer before we go further. Have you spent years shielding yourself from other people's energy, boundaries, releases, energy clearings, and still wake at 3 a.m., running someone else's anxiety? Those tools treat it as outside you. It's not. Your nervous system has adjusted to every room for so long, it forgot its baseline. The sealed timeline, a quantum guide to becoming untouchable by wrong frequencies, walks through the 5-step crossing: the adjusting pattern, the breaking point, the crossing itself, what stable feels like, and why old evidence shows up. Every tool you tried treated this as an outside problem. This one ends the adjusting pattern that made you a receiver in the first place. The longer you adjust, the harder it gets to come back to yourself. Open it tonight. It's in the pinned comment below. Now, back to the quantum mechanics at the heart of everything we're building here. In quantum mechanics, there is a phenomenon called superposition. It is one of the most verified, most precisely documented, and most consistently misunderstood discoveries in the history of human science. The principle is this: a quantum particle, before it is observed, before it is measured, before it interacts with anything that forces it into a defined state, exists in all possible states simultaneously. It is not in one place. It is in every possible place at once, with each position having a certain probability. It is not one thing. It is all things, each with a certain likelihood of becoming the actual thing. This is not metaphor. This is not philosophy. This is the measurable, reproducible, mathematically precise description of how reality operates at its most fundamental level. And then something happens. The particle is observed. It is measured. It interacts with its environment in a way that forces it to declare itself. And in that moment, in the precise, instantaneous moment of that interaction, the superposition collapses. All the possibilities contract into one actuality. The particle is here, not everywhere. It is this, not everything. The wave function, the mathematical description of all possible states, collapses into a single point. This is called wave function collapse. And it is the most important physical process in the universe. Because here is what almost no one has fully grasped. This is not just a description of how subatomic particles behave. This is a description of how consciousness operates. This is the physics of how a mind moves from potential to actual, from possibility to reality, from the infinite field of what could be to the specific, defined, lived experience of what is. The 99% are living in a collapsed state. Not because they chose it, because they were never shown any other option. From the moment they entered the world, every system around them, educational, cultural, social, familial, was designed to collapse their superposition as quickly and as completely as possible. To define them, to categorize them, to tell them who they are, what they're capable of, what's realistic, what's possible for someone like them. To measure them constantly, observe them constantly, force them into defined states before they ever had a chance to exist in the full breadth of their potential. By the time most people reach adulthood, their consciousness is almost entirely collapsed. They have a fixed identity, fixed beliefs, fixed expectations about what reality does and doesn't offer them. Fixed neural pathways that process every new experience through the filter of everything they've already decided is true. They are, in the language of quantum mechanics, fully observed, fully measured, fully defined, and a fully collapsed system cannot access new possibilities. It can only rearrange what it already has. This is why the 99% keep getting the same results. Not because they're not working hard enough, not because the universe is withholding from them, but because they are operating from a consciousness that has already decided what's possible, and reality, which is extraordinarily obedient to the instructions it receives from consciousness, keeps delivering exactly that. The God state is the restoration of superposition. It is the state in which your consciousness, instead of operating from a collapsed, defined, fixed identity, opens back into the field of all possibilities. Not by abandoning who you are, not by erasing your history or your personality or your preferences, but by releasing the rigid, defended, heavily patrolled border between who you have been and who you could become. By allowing yourself to exist, even briefly, even experimentally, in the quantum space between defined states. By becoming, again, a wave before it is forced to be a particle. When you enter the God state, you stop thinking like the 99%, not because you become superior to them, but because you stop operating from the same collapsed framework they're operating from. You stop asking what's realistic and start asking what's possible. You stop consulting your history for permission to create your future. You stop mistaking the map, your beliefs, your identity, your past experiences, for the territory. You stop living in the echo chamber of your own previous conclusions. You start thinking from the field. And the field is infinite. Let me be precise about what I mean by the God state, because precision matters here. This is not a state of grandiosity. It is not a state of feeling superior or special or chosen. Those are ego states, and the ego is the very mechanism that keeps you in the collapsed condition. The God state is actually characterized by a profound dissolution of the ego's grip. Not the destruction of self, but the loosening of the ego's insistence that the self is fixed, defined, and limited to what it has already been. The God state is a state of expanded perception, where ordinary consciousness processes reality through the narrow filter of personal history and personal identity. The God state processes reality from a much wider aperture. Things that were invisible become visible. Connections that were obscured become obvious. Solutions that seemed impossible become straightforward, not because they changed, but because you can now see them. The God state is a state of non-reactive creation. The 99% are, for the most part, reactive. Something happens in their environment, and they respond from their conditioning. Someone says something, and the conditioned self fires back. An obstacle appears, and the conditioned self either fights it with the same strategies that have always been used, or collapses into the belief that the obstacle is proof of limitation. In the God state, you are no longer primarily reactive. You are primarily generative. You are not responding to reality from your past. You are creating reality from your vision. The God state is a state of quantum coherence, a term from physics that describes a condition in which the different parts of a system are operating in alignment, in phase, in a kind of synchronized harmony that allows the system to behave as a single unified entity rather than a collection of conflicting parts. Most people's consciousness is incoherent. Their thoughts say one thing, their feelings say another. Their actions say a third thing, and their unconscious beliefs are running a fourth program underneath all of it. The result is interference, like waves cancelling each other out. Effort without momentum, movement without direction. A lot of energy producing very little result. In the God state, these layers come into alignment. The thought, the feeling, the action, and the belief are all pointing in the same direction. And when they do, the results are not linear. They are exponential. This is why the 1% seem to operate in a different reality. Not because they're working harder, because they're working from coherence rather than interference, because they've crossed the threshold into a state where their entire system is moving in one direction instead of fighting itself. Now, here is where it gets important. Here is where we need to look at the gate itself, the precise threshold between the ordinary state and the God state. Because understanding the gate is what makes crossing it possible. Most people who have heard of states like this assume the crossing is a gradual process, that you get a little more enlightened each day, a little more expanded each week, until one day you wake up and you're operating at a different level. This is the mountain model, and it is wrong. Not wrong as a general encouragement toward growth, but wrong as a description of how state changes actually happen. Because state changes, in physics, are not gradual. They are sudden. They are threshold events. Water doesn't gradually become ice. At 33 degrees Fahrenheit, it is liquid. At 31 degrees, it is solid. The transition between those two states happens at a precise threshold, and it happens all at once. The entire system reorganizes simultaneously, not molecule by molecule, gradually, over time, all at once, at the crossing point. This is a phase transition, and consciousness undergoes phase transitions in exactly the same way. You don't gradually enter the God state. You cross a threshold into it. There is a before and there is an after. There is a moment where you are standing at the gate and a moment where you have stepped through. And on the other side of that threshold, The reorganization is complete, not partial, not in progress, complete. This is why the transmission you are in right now is structured as a crossing, not as a curriculum. You are not here to learn about the God state incrementally. You are here to cross into it. The understanding we're building is not a ladder. It's the approach to the gate. Each section of this transmission brings you closer to the threshold until the threshold is right in front of you, and all that remains is the step. But before we take the step, we need to understand what we are stepping away from. Because the gate has two sides, and you cannot fully appreciate what's on the other side until you are completely clear about what you're leaving behind. Let's talk about the state the 99% are living in. Not to judge it, not to condemn it, but to see it with the kind of precision that makes leaving it possible. The ordinary state of human consciousness, what we might call the default state, the conditioned state, the collapsed state, is characterized by a specific and deeply consistent set of operating principles. Once you see these principles clearly, you will recognize them everywhere. You will see them in the people around you. You will see them in the culture. And this is the important part. You will see them in yourself, not as a source of shame, as a source of information, as the precise map of the gate you are about to step through. The first principle of the ordinary state is identity-based thinking. In the ordinary state, every thought, every decision, every perception is filtered through the question: what does this mean about who I am? The self is the central reference point for all processing. Good things happen, and the conditioned mind asks, do I deserve this? Bad things happen, and the conditioned mind asks, is this my fault? New opportunities appear, and the conditioned mind asks, is this for someone like me? Every piece of incoming information is immediately run through the identity filter, the accumulated story of who I am, what I'm worth, what I'm capable of, what I deserve, and processed according to whatever verdict that story delivers. This is not a character flaw. This is the natural result of a consciousness that has been observed, measured, and defined from its earliest moments. The identity is the map the conditioned self uses to navigate reality. And maps are useful until the territory changes, and the territory is always changing. Identity-based thinking keeps you anchored to who you were. It makes the past the primary author of the future. It is the mechanism by which people who have been told they are limited continue to live limited lives long after the original limitation was imposed. The story becomes the reality. The map becomes the territory, and the person spends their life navigating a world that exists primarily inside their own head. The second principle of the ordinary state is scarcity processing. In the ordinary state, the mind's default mode is to scan for threats, deficits, and lacks. This is not a design flaw, It is an evolutionary inheritance. The brain that survived was the brain that noticed what was missing, what was dangerous, what was insufficient. Vigilance about scarcity kept our ancestors alive. But in a world where the primary challenges are not physical survival, but creative expansion, where the game is not avoid the predator, but build the life, this same mechanism becomes a prison. Scarcity processing means that no matter what arrives, the first question is, what's missing? What's wrong? What's not enough? What could go wrong? A good thing happens, and the scarcity mind immediately begins calculating the risk of losing it. A new possibility appears, and the scarcity mind immediately begins calculating all the reasons it won't work. Someone else succeeds, and the scarcity mind experiences it as a subtraction, as if their gain somehow diminishes what's available for you. The 99% are not living in an objectively scarce world. They are living in a consciousness that processes every world as scarce. And because consciousness instructs reality, they keep creating the experience of scarcity, even when the objective conditions for abundance are present. The third principle of the ordinary state is time-bound thinking. In the ordinary state, consciousness is almost entirely occupied by the past and the future, with very little actual presence in the now. The past is the archive of evidence for the identity story. Here is proof of who I am. Here is proof of what's possible for me. Here is proof of what to expect. The future is the projection screen onto which all the fears and hopes generated by the identity story are cast. And the present, the only place where reality actually exists, the only place where creation actually happens, the only place where the gate actually stands, is largely bypassed. This is why the 99% can work so hard and change so little. They are doing their work in the past and the future, which are both entirely imaginary. The past is a story. The future is a projection. Reality only exists now. Creation only happens now. The gate only opens now. The fourth principle of the ordinary state is consensus reality. In the ordinary state, the primary measure of what's possible is what the people around you believe is possible. Consensus reality is the shared hallucination of a particular group, the collective agreement about what's real, what's achievable, what's appropriate, what's allowed. It is the water the conditioned mind swims in. And because it is everywhere, it is almost invisible. Consensus reality is how a person can grow up in a particular zip code and never question that certain things are simply not for people from that zip code. It is how an entire culture can believe that certain kinds of success are for certain kinds of people, and how everyone in that culture, without any explicit instruction, adjusts their expectations accordingly. It is the invisible ceiling that most people never even look up to see, because they stopped looking up long before they were old enough to know they were doing it. The God state is not consensus reality. It cannot be, because the God state operates from the field of all possibilities, and consensus reality is, by definition, a massive contraction of that field. It is the collective decision about which possibilities are allowed. And the 1%, the people who have crossed the threshold into the God state, do not take their instructions about what's possible from the collective decision. They take their instructions from the field itself. This is what looks like genius from the outside. This is what looks like luck or talent or some mysterious quality that other people have, and you don't. It is none of those things. It is a different operating system. It is a consciousness that has crossed the threshold from consensus reality into the field of genuine possibility. It is the God state, and it is available to you. Now, let's talk about what actually happens when you cross. Because the crossing is not what people expect. The God state is not a state of constant peak experience. It is not a state of perpetual bliss or unbroken inspiration, or the absence of challenge. Those are fantasies generated by the ordinary state's version of what the other side looks like. And they are, ironically, one of the things that keeps people from crossing, because they're waiting for the gate to look like paradise, and the gate just looks like a door. What actually changes when you enter the God state is the layer from which you are operating, not the circumstances of your life necessarily, at least not immediately. The layer, the depth from which your consciousness is running its processes. In the ordinary state, you are operating from the surface, from the layer of thoughts, reactions, conditioned responses, identity stories, and consensus beliefs. This is the layer that is most visible, most familiar, most socially legible. It is the layer that other people can see and evaluate and respond to. And because it is the most visible layer, most people assume it is the most important layer. They spend all their energy managing it, optimizing it, performing it. But it is not the most important layer. It is the outermost layer. And beneath it, several layers down, in the deep substrate of consciousness where the real instructions are written, is the field, the superposition, the state of all possibilities, before any of them have collapsed into the defined, defended, observable self. When you enter the God state, you are operating from that deeper layer. You are not abandoning the surface. You still have thoughts. You still have responses. You still have a personality and a history and a set of preferences. But they are no longer running the show. They are instruments in the hands of a deeper intelligence. And that deeper intelligence, the part of you that exists before identity, before conditioning, before the collapse into a defined and limited self. That is the part that can access the field. This is why people in the God state seem to think differently. they do think differently. Not because they're smarter in the conventional sense, because they're thinking from a different layer. They're not consulting their personal history for what's possible. They're consulting the field. And the field, unlike personal history, has no record of limitation. Let me tell you about two people, not their real names, but their real stories, in the sense that they represent something true about the crossing. The first person is named Marcus. Marcus is 41 years old, and by every external measure, he is successful. He runs a business that generates real money. He has a family he loves. He has friends who respect him. He has checked every box on the list that his particular cultural context told him to check. And yet there is this feeling, this persistent, low-grade, almost embarrassing feeling that he is operating at about 30% of what he actually is, or that there is a version of him, a capacity in him that has never been accessed. That every morning he wakes up and puts on the same costume, the successful businessman, the reliable provider, the guy who has it together. And the costume fits fine, but it is still a costume, and underneath it, something is pressing against the fabric, wanting out. Marcus has tried to address this feeling the way the 99% address it. He has optimized his morning routine. He has read the books. He has hired the coaches. He has attended the seminars. He has tried meditation, tried journaling, tried cold plunges and biohacking, and every tool that the self-improvement industry offers. And some of it has helped, in the way that rearranging furniture helps. The room looks different, but it's still the same room, because Marcus is trying to change his surface from within his surface. He is trying to upgrade the costume while still wearing it. He is working on the collapsed state, using the tools of the collapsed state. And the collapsed state cannot uncollapse itself. That is not how phase transitions work. What Marcus needs is not another optimization. He needs a threshold. He needs to find the gate. The second person is named Elena. Elena grew up in circumstances that the consensus reality of her community translated into a very specific story about what was possible for her. The story was not cruel, it was just small. It said, people from here do this kind of work, live in this kind of neighborhood, have this kind of life. And Elena, who was brilliant and perceptive and deeply alive in ways that her environment had no framework for, absorbed the story the way children absorb everything, completely, without resistance, as if it were simply the description of reality, rather than one particular community's agreement about reality. She spent her 20s trying to live inside the story and feeling the wrongness of it, the way you feel a shoe that's the wrong size, not dramatically, not in a way you'd necessarily complain about, but constantly, with every step. She tried to stretch the story. She tried to expand the edges of what was allowed. She tried to be a bigger version of the small story and found that the small story had very effective mechanisms for keeping itself small. And then one day, not a dramatic day, not a day anything particularly notable happened, something in Elena's consciousness reached a threshold. She was sitting somewhere ordinary, doing something ordinary, and she became aware, with a sudden, sharp, almost physical clarity, that the story she had been living inside was not reality. It was a story, and stories can be changed, not gradually, not by negotiating with the story on its own terms, but by stepping outside it entirely, by finding the door that the story had always insisted wasn't there. Elena found the gate, and she crossed it. What happened to Elena on the other side was not a dramatic transformation in her external circumstances, at least not immediately. What happened was a transformation in the layer from which she was operating. She stopped consulting the story for permission. She stopped measuring her possibilities against the consensus reality of her community. She stopped asking what was realistic for someone like her and started asking what was possible in the field. And the field, which had been waiting patiently, as fields do, responded immediately. Not with magic, with the natural consequence of a consciousness that has expanded its aperture. She could see things she couldn't see before. She could access options that had always been there, but had been invisible to her contracted state. She could make connections, take steps, create realities that the small story would have classified as impossible. Not because they were impossible, but because they were outside the boundary of what the story allowed. Marcus and Elena are not special cases. They are the pattern. They are the before and after of the crossing, and the crossing is available to you. I want to pause here and ask you something directly. Has there been a moment in your own life, a threshold you crossed, a point where you knew there was no going back, where everything shifted at once and you stepped through into something you couldn't have predicted from the other side? Drop it in the comments. Not the polished version, the real one. The moment the gate opened and you walked through it. Let's talk about what it actually takes to enter the God state. Because there is a common misunderstanding here. A misunderstanding that the ordinary state actively promotes because it is in the ordinary state's interest to promote it. The misunderstanding is that the God state requires extraordinary effort, extraordinary suffering, extraordinary preparation, that you have to earn it, that you have to be ready, that you have to do enough work on yourself before you're allowed through the gate. This is the story the gate tells you when you're standing in front of it and you're afraid to cross. It is not true. The God state does not require preparation. It requires willingness. These are not the same thing. Preparation is something you do in the ordinary state to try to make yourself worthy of the crossing. Willingness is the act of crossing. One keeps you at the gate indefinitely. The other takes you through it. This is not to say that understanding doesn't matter. Clearly it does. Or we would not be spending this transmission building it. But understanding is not preparation in the sense of making yourself worthy. Understanding is the approach to the gate. It is the path that brings you close enough to see the door clearly. What takes you through the door is not more understanding. It is the decision, the moment of willingness, the instant where you stop standing at the threshold and start moving through it. And the willingness is not a grand, dramatic, life-altering decision. It is a quiet, precise, internal shift. It is the moment where the part of you that has been managing your identity, defending it, performing it, protecting it from anything that might challenge it, loosens its grip. Just slightly, just enough to allow a crack of light from the other side to enter. That crack is the gate opening. And once the gate opens, once that crack of light appears, the crossing is almost inevitable, because the light from the other side is more compelling than anything the defended identity can offer. The field is more alive than the story. The superposition is more generative than the collapsed state. And something in you, the part that has always known there was more, the part that has been pressing against the costume, the part that recognized the address of this transmission before your conscious mind knew what it was, that part moves toward the light instinctively. This is not a metaphor. This is the physics of consciousness. Systems move toward states of greater coherence. Consciousness moves toward greater expansion. The direction of the crossing is built into the nature of what you are. The only question is when. Now, I want to talk about the specific ways the God state changes your thinking, because this is the practical core of what we're doing here. This is the difference between an inspiring idea and an actual crossing. The God state is not just a feeling. It is a fundamentally different operating system. And understanding its specific features is what allows you to recognize when you're in it, maintain it when you find it, and return to it when you drift. The first shift, from reactive thinking to creative thinking. In the ordinary state, the mind is primarily reactive. It is scanning the environment for inputs and generating responses based on past programming. Something happens, and the conditioned mind immediately begins its processing. What does this mean? What should I do? What have I done before in similar situations? What does this say about me? What do I need to protect? The response is generated before the situation has been fully perceived, because the conditioned mind is not actually perceiving the situation. It is perceiving its interpretation of the situation, filtered through everything it has already decided. In the God state, the mind shifts from reactive to creative. Not because external events stop happening, but because the relationship to external events changes completely. In the God state, you are not primarily a responder to what is happening. You are primarily a creator of what is happening. Not in the sense of controlling all external circumstances. That is a fantasy of the ego, not a feature of the God state. But in the sense that your primary orientation is generative rather than reactive. You are asking not what does this mean about what's already true, but what does this make possible that wasn't possible before? This shift alone, from reactive to creative, produces results that look miraculous from the outside. Because a creative mind, operating in a world full of reactive minds, has an almost unfair advantage. The reactive minds are all playing defense. The creative mind is playing a different game entirely. The second shift, from problem-focused to solution-focused thinking. This is related to the first shift, but distinct. In the ordinary state, the mind is exquisitely good at identifying problems. This is the scarcity processing mechanism in action, scanning for what's wrong, what's missing, what's broken. And the mind that is focused on problems is very good at finding them. It finds them everywhere. It finds them in situations that don't contain them. It finds them in possibilities before they've been tried. It finds them in people before they've spoken. The problem-focused mind is never short of problems. It is, in a very real sense, generating the problems it is looking for. In the God state, the orientation shifts, not to denial of problems. That would be a different kind of collapse, a spiritual bypassing that is its own trap, but to a fundamental reorientation toward solutions. The God state mind, when it encounters a problem, does not begin cataloging the problem's dimensions and implications and historical precedents. It immediately asks, what is the solution? Not what is the realistic solution, not what is the solution that someone like me can access, not what is the solution that my past experience suggests is available, but what is the solution? Full stop. From the field, without the filter of limitation. And because the field contains all possible solutions, because the superposition by definition includes every possible state, the God state mind finds solutions that the problem-focused mind cannot see. Not because the solutions weren't there, because the problem-focused mind was not looking in the right place. It was looking in the collapsed space of past experience. The God state mind looks in the field. The third shift, from linear to non-linear thinking. The ordinary state thinks linearly. Step 1 leads to step 2, leads to step 3. Cause produces effect in a predictable sequence. Resources are acquired in a logical order. Progress is measured in increments. This is not wrong. Linear thinking is a useful and necessary mode for certain kinds of tasks, but it is profoundly limiting as the primary mode of operation in a non-linear reality. Reality is not linear. Quantum mechanics makes this explicit. The behavior of systems at the quantum level is fundamentally probabilistic, non-local, and non-sequential. Cause and effect are not always what they appear to be. The path between where you are and where you're going is not always a straight line. Sometimes it's a sudden leap. Sometimes it's a connection that appears from nowhere. Sometimes it's a synchronicity. Two things that have no apparent causal relationship, but that arrive together in a way that creates something neither could have created alone. The God-state mind is comfortable with non-linearity. It is not waiting for step 2 before it can imagine step 3. It is not insisting that the path look like what paths have looked like before. It is operating in the full dimensional space of possibility, which means it can recognize and utilize connections and openings that the linear mind would never even register. This is why the 1% seem to move so fast. Not because they're working harder, because they're not limiting themselves to the linear path. They're moving through the field, taking the shortest route between where they are and where they're going, even when that route doesn't look like a route, even when it looks like a leap. The fourth shift, from fear-based to love-based motivation. This one is the deepest, and it is the one that most directly explains the difference between the 99% and the 1% at the level of sustained performance and creative output. In the ordinary state, the primary motivational engine is fear. Not always obvious, dramatic fear, but the subtle, pervasive background fear that underlies almost all conditioned behavior. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being wrong, fear of being exposed, fear of losing what you have, fear of not being enough. This fear is so constant, so normalized, so woven into the fabric of ordinary consciousness that most people don't even recognize it as fear. They call it ambition. They call it drive. They call it high standards. They call it responsibility, but fear-based motivation has a ceiling. Because fear is a contracted state, and contracted states produce contracted results. You can build impressive things from fear. The history of human achievement contains many examples of fear-driven creation. But fear-driven creation always carries the signature of the fear that created it. It is defensive, brittle, exhausting, and ultimately hollow. It achieves the external markers without the internal experience of having arrived anywhere. In the God state, the motivational engine shifts from fear to love. And I want to be precise about what I mean by love here, because this is not sentiment, not romance, not the soft and gentle thing the word usually points to. Love, in this context, means alignment. It means the state in which your action is coming from your deepest truth rather than your deepest fear. It means creating because you are called to create, not because you are afraid of what happens if you don't. It means moving toward what you are for, rather than away from what you are against. Love-based motivation has no ceiling, because love is an expansive state, and expansive states produce expansive results. When you are creating from alignment, when the thought, the feeling, the action, and the belief are all pointing in the same direction, toward something you genuinely, deeply, completely want to bring into being, the results are not just better than fear-based results. They are of a different order entirely. They carry a different quality. They sustain themselves differently. They attract differently. They compound differently. This is the God state in its most essential form. A consciousness operating from love rather than fear, from the field rather than the story, from creation rather than reaction, from the superposition rather than the collapse. And it is available to you, right now, through the gate that is standing open in front of you. And I want to ask you something before we go into the practice. Think about the specific moment you knew, not suspected, knew, that you had crossed a point of no return in your own life. The moment the old version of you became impossible to go back to. Tell me about it in the comments. What was it? And did you choose it? Or did it choose you? Let's talk about the practice. Because the crossing is not just a conceptual event. It is a somatic event. It happens in the body as much as in the mind. It happens in the breath, in the nervous system, in the felt sense of your own aliveness. And there is a practice, a precise, repeatable, crossing practice that can take you through the gate right now. I want you to do something with me, not later, not after you've thought about it more. Now. Find the place in your body where you feel the most tension. Not the most pain necessarily, but the most holding. The place where your body is gripping something. For most people, this is somewhere in the chest, or the throat, or the solar plexus. Find it. Don't try to release it yet. Just locate it. This tension is the gate. Not a metaphor. This physical sensation is the precise location in your body where the conditioned self is maintaining its grip, where the collapsed state is being held in place by the muscular, neurological, biochemical machinery of your physical form. This is where the story lives. This is where the identity is defended. This is where the superposition was collapsed, and where the collapse is being maintained, moment by moment, by the body's constant low-level contraction. Now, without trying to fix it, without trying to release it, without doing anything to it at all, just look at it. Look at it the way you would look at something you've never seen before, with curiosity, with openness, without judgment, without the need for it to be different from what it is. Notice what happens. For most people, just the act of looking, of bringing pure, non-judgmental attention to the place of holding, produces a subtle shift, The tension doesn't disappear, but it changes quality. It becomes more porous, less defended, less insistent on maintaining itself. This is the beginning of the crossing. This is the gate responding to your attention. Now, I want you to ask yourself a question, and I want you to ask it from the place of tension, from inside the gate itself, not from your thinking mind, from the body, from the holding, from the gripping. The question is this: what is this protecting me from? Don't think about the answer. Feel for it. Let it arise from the body, from the tension, from the place where the conditioned self is maintaining its grip. What is the fear that this holding is protecting you from? What is the thing that the identity, the story, the collapsed state is working so hard to prevent? Let it surface. Whatever it is, let it be what it is without trying to fix it, or argue with it, or reassure yourself that it's not true. Just let it be present. And now comes the crossing. I want you to take a breath, not a forced breath, not a dramatic breath, just a breath that goes a little deeper than the place where the tension lives, a breath that goes underneath the holding. That passes through the gate. And as you breathe, I want you to consider, just hold the possibility that what is on the other side of that tension is not danger, not the thing the fear is protecting you from, but space, openness, the field, the superposition, the state of all possibilities that exists before the collapse. The thing the conditioned self is most afraid of is not what it thinks it's afraid of. It is not failure. It is not judgment. It is not loss. The thing the conditioned self is most afraid of is its own dissolution. The conditioned self knows, at some level, that the God state is real, and it knows that if you enter it, the conditioned self, the story, the identity, the defended, defined, collapsed version of you, will not survive the crossing intact. Not because you will be destroyed, but because you will be expanded. And the conditioned self, which has organized its entire existence around staying the same, experiences expansion as annihilation. This is the guardian at the gate. This is the fear that keeps the 99% standing at the threshold instead of crossing it. Not a fear of the world, a fear of their own becoming, a fear of what it means to be more than the story has allowed. And here is what I want you to know, right now, at the gate. That fear is the gate. The fear itself is the threshold. The thing you are afraid of crossing is the crossing. When you feel the resistance, when the conditioned self tightens its grip and tells you all the reasons to stay where you are, that is not a sign to stop. That is the sign that you are at the exact right place. That is the gate being a gate. Cross it, not by fighting the fear, not by overpowering it, or arguing with it, or convincing it that it's wrong, but by breathing through it, by taking the next breath from underneath the holding, by allowing the expansion to happen rather than trying to make it happen, by being willing to be more than the story has allowed. The gate is open. Step through. What is on the other side? I want to describe this carefully, because the ordinary state's imagination of what's on the other side of the gate is almost always wrong. It imagines paradise. It imagines the absence of difficulty. It imagines a state of perpetual ease and inspiration and abundance that requires no effort and contains no challenge. This is the fantasy version of the God state, and it is one of the most effective barriers to actually crossing. Because when the reality of the other side doesn't match the fantasy, people assume they haven't crossed. They assume they need to keep preparing. They stay at the gate. The reality of the God state is both more ordinary and more extraordinary than the fantasy. It is more ordinary because you are still you. You still have your personality, your history, your preferences, your relationships, your responsibilities. You still have days that are difficult. You still face challenges. You still make mistakes. The God state does not remove you from the human experience. It changes the layer from which you engage with it. It is more extraordinary because the change in layer changes everything. Not in the way you expect, not all at once, not in a dramatic, visible transformation, but in the way that changing the foundation of a building changes everything about what can be built on top of it. The foundation is the same Sid. The footprint is the same, but what can rise from it is now entirely different. On the other side of the gate, you stop seeking permission from your past. This is the first and perhaps most immediately felt change. The constant background consultation, the checking in with the story, the measuring of new possibilities against old evidence, goes quiet. Not forever, not completely. The conditioned self doesn't disappear, it just loses its position of authority. But the silence where that consultation used to be is remarkable. It is like turning off a sound you had stopped noticing. You don't know how loud it was until it stops. On the other side of the gate, you stop needing external validation to know your own worth. The ordinary state is an almost constant referendum on the self, seeking approval, managing impressions, adjusting behavior to produce the desired response from the people around you. In the God state, the source of your sense of worth moves from outside to inside, not in an arrogant, defensive, I don't care what anyone thinks way. That is just the conditioned self in a different costume, but in a genuinely grounded, genuinely stable, genuinely unshakable way. You know what you are. You know what you're here to do. The opinions of others are information, not verdicts. On the other side of the gate, You begin to operate from your actual genius rather than your performed competence. Everyone in the ordinary state is performing competence, demonstrating their value, showing their work, proving their worth through visible effort and visible results. This performance is exhausting, and it is also, almost always, a shadow of what is actually possible. Your actual genius, the thing you are uniquely, specifically, unreplicably here to contribute, is not something you perform. It is something you are. And it only becomes accessible when the performance stops. When you stop trying to be impressive and start being real. When you stop managing your image and start inhabiting your actual nature. The God state is where your actual genius lives, not as a reward for having worked hard enough, as the natural expression of a consciousness that has stopped contracting itself into the shape of other people's expectations. On the other side of the gate, your relationship to time changes. Not literally. You still have 24 hours in a day, the same as everyone else. But your experience of those hours changes completely. In the ordinary state, time is a resource that is always running out. There is never enough of it. The to-do list is always longer than the day. The urgency is always present. In the God state, time becomes something different, not infinite, but spacious. There is a quality of presence in the God state that makes each moment feel complete in itself, rather than a stepping stone to the next moment. And paradoxically, this presence, this quality of being fully in the now rather than rushing toward the future, produces more in less time than any amount of frantic, ordinary state effort. On the other side of the gate, synchronicity becomes a regular feature of your experience rather than an occasional surprise. In the ordinary state, synchronicities happen, but they are interpreted as coincidences. Pleasant, perhaps, but not meaningful, not reliable, not something you can count on. In the God state, you understand synchronicity for what it is, the field responding to your coherence. When your thought, feeling, action, and belief are all aligned, when you are operating from the superposition rather than the collapse, reality organizes itself around that coherence in ways that look, from the outside, like luck. They are not luck. They are the natural consequence of a consciousness that has stopped sending contradictory signals to the field and started sending a clear, coherent, unified intention. The 1% who operate from the God state are not luckier than other people. They are more coherent. And coherence is the mechanism by which the field delivers what it has always been ready to deliver. Now, let's address something directly. Because there is a version of what I've been describing that the conditioned mind will try to convert into a performance, a new identity, a new story to replace the old story. The God state becomes a thing to achieve, a status to attain, a new costume to wear. And the person who was previously performing the identity of the limited self begins performing the identity of the enlightened self. This is not the God state. This is the ordinary state with new furniture. The God state is not an identity. It is a mode of operation. It is not something you become. It is something you access. And you access it not by adding something new to yourself, but by releasing the grip of what has been falsely defining you. The crossing is not an acquisition. It is a release. This is the paradox at the heart of the God state. And it is the paradox that the ordinary state finds most difficult to accept. You do not enter the God state by becoming more. You enter it by releasing the need to be more than you already are. The conditioned self is always in the process of trying to become, trying to acquire enough, achieve enough, be enough to finally feel like enough. The God state is the recognition that you already are, not in a passive, complacent sense, but in the sense that the field, the superposition, the state of all possibilities, is already fully present in you. It has always been there. The collapse was imposed from outside. The expansion is your natural state. The gate is not a door to somewhere you've never been. It is a door back to what you already are. Let me tell you what happened to Marcus. Marcus found the gate not through a dramatic crisis, but through a quiet conversation with himself that he had been avoiding for years. The conversation was this: what if the 30% I'm operating at is not a problem to be solved, but a gate to be crossed? What if the feeling of being in a costume is not evidence that I need a better costume, but evidence that I need to stop wearing one? He sat with that question. Not for hours, not for days. For about 4 minutes in his car before a meeting. 4 minutes of genuine, undefended contact with the truth of his own experience. And in those 4 minutes, something shifted, not everything, not dramatically, but something in the layer beneath the performance, something in the substrate of his consciousness, loosened. The grip released just slightly. The crack appeared. Marcus did not immediately transform. He drove into his meeting, and had the meeting, and went home, and had dinner, and went to sleep. But something was different. The next morning, when he sat down to work, he noticed that the consultation, the checking in with the story, the measuring of possibilities against past evidence, was quieter. Not gone, quieter. And in the silence where the consultation used to be loudest, he noticed something he had not noticed before, an idea. Not a practical, incremental, this is what comes next idea. A genuine, field-sourced, this is what I'm actually here to do idea. He almost dismissed it. The conditioned self immediately began its processing. This is not realistic. This is not what I do. This is not how it works. This is not for someone like me. But the crack was there. The light was coming through. And Marcus, for the first time in a very long time, chose the light over the story. What happened next was not magic. It was not overnight success. It was the natural consequence of a consciousness that had crossed a threshold. He started seeing possibilities that had always been there. He started making connections that had always been available. He started moving with a coherence that his previous interference had prevented. And over time, not a long time, but a real time, the results began to reflect the change in the layer. Marcus did not become a different person. He became more fully himself. The costume came off. The 30% expanded, not to 100%. That is not a meaningful number, but to something that felt, for the first time, like the actual size of what he was. Elena's story, after the crossing, was similar in structure, if different in content. She stopped consulting the small story for permission. She stopped measuring her possibilities against the consensus reality of her community. She started moving from the field, and the field, which had no record of her limitation, which had only ever contained the full scope of what she was capable of, responded. She did not escape her circumstances overnight. She did not leave everything behind and start fresh. She changed the layer from which she was engaging with her circumstances. And that change in layer changed everything else, gradually, and then suddenly, the way all phase transitions work, gradually, 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 and then all at once. This is the pattern. This is what the crossing looks like in a real life, not a dramatic departure from everything you've known. A fundamental change in the operating layer. A shift from the collapsed state to the field. From the story to the truth. From the costume to the self. And then the results follow. Not as reward, as consequence. As the natural output of a coherent system operating from its actual nature. You are standing at the threshold of this right now. Not metaphorically, actually. The fact that you have been in this transmission for this long, the fact that something in you recognized the address and kept moving toward it, is not an accident. It is the field communicating with itself. It is the part of you that already exists on the other side of the gate, reaching back through the transmission to guide the part of you that is still standing at the edge. The gate is open. And I want to speak now to the specific things that might be holding you at the edge.